queen to another. She's an attorney, a TV star, a distinguished scholar, and advocate for civil and human rights. Her accolades, well, as I was researching her, it would take a whole show to list them all. So let me just get right to it and introduce you to the incomparable, the Honorable Glenda A. Hatchett. Hi, Judge. Thank you so much for being here.
It's really my privilege to be here with you today.
You're a gem. Let me start with just a little history. You're born right here in Atlanta.
Yes.
You graduated from Charles Lincoln High School during the time of segregation, which truly, sadly, wasn't that long ago. What was that like?
It was interesting. People are always shocked to know that I did not have a student, I didn't have a classmate that was white, I didn't have a teacher that was white until I went away to college. That our systems were very, very much segregated, even though it was after the segregation in the city, and that was the reality that we had, and that there were very low expectations of me as a little colored girl, you know? But fortunately, my father told me that I could be anything in the world, and I believed that. And so I never saw being a little colored girl as a curse. But I have always understood that that is a blessing. That is who I am. And I've always embraced that. And I grew up in a extended family that reinforced that for me. And so I've been very blessed.
I was saying, what a role model you've become to all those that came after you and have looked up to you. Let's talk about remembering hearing the name Martin Luther King Jr. We were discussing a little bit before the show, but tell people about that journey.
Right. I will tell you, I had no idea of who he was in terms of what he meant to the world. To me, he was just Yolanda and Marty's daddy, right? But here's this, you know, that was who he was. And I just remember, I'll tell you really quickly the story. Yolanda and I had a piano recital, right? And you know, please, and so he was late. He missed the recital, and he came in and asked her to play. And I was getting ready to leave with my parents. I might maybe have been 5 years old. And he turned around and he said, "Won't you play for me too?" I mean, it's this wonderful, kind man, who literally changed the world, and so
he wanted to hear you play the piano, Judge.
Look, but just the kindness,
the
kindness, because he flew in. I mean, he literally had missed it. He was rushing because while he was saving the world, he was still her daddy. He was still a father. He was still a husband. And I look back there on that with adult eyes, and I thought, what an amazing, wonderful man.
I would say speaks to his character, obviously. But how have his teachings then, now looking back through your adult lens, how do you think that spurred you to be an advocate for social justice and change?
Very, very much so, because the famous quote that I just so love is where he says, "The measure of a man," and I'm sure he would also say a woman, "is not where you stand in times of comfort and convenience, but where you stand in times of challenge and controversy." And very interestingly, he did that quote literally just a few days before he was assassinated, as I was doing some research about that. And so what I think that we all have to do is that the dream has to be with our eyes wide open, and that it is incumbent upon me. I am a beneficiary of Martin Luther King's dream. I know that. I know that I've had opportunities because of the work that he did, the sacrifices that he and so many others did. And I stand on the shoulders of mighty generations. I'm going to tear up. And with that comes an enormous responsibility. I have to do what I can, where I can. And so my job is to then reach back. It is to try to encourage. It is to try for us to look at the disparities in this country and to do what we can, where we can. It's important. Health disparities, come on. You know, my daughter tragically died because of health disparities. We, Black women, die 4 times more often in childbirth. We are 41% more likely to die of breast cancer. And the statistics go on and on. Well, the poverty level is different.
I was going to say, I appreciate, obviously, all that you are doing, but y'all are tired. For me, what I have learned is that it's time for us people who look like me to keep going
Absolutely.
and to listen to everything that you're saying, but then put that into action. Now you're gonna make me cry. Okay, I'm not Oprah. All right, okay, but it's so
you're
true.
right. But you're right, Cara. It is that responsibility. It is that pouring back into others, and that is not only my responsibility. It is my privilege to do that, and so I try to show up fully
Sure.
in every situation. I know we're short on time.
No.
I clerked for the first Black federal judge in the Deep South, Judge Horace Ward.
Yes. Yes.
When I sat in that courtroom, when he raised his hand to take his oath of office, I want your viewers to know that he did it in the same courtroom where he had been denied admission to the University of Georgia's law school back in the 50s.
Wow.
And to see that come circle and to be able to clerk
Yeah.
for the first Black federal judge, these opportunities are a privilege that we must embrace and then go on and then pay it forward in a sense.
Right.
And so, people need to go and be active on this day. They need to volunteer.
Sure.
But not just today.
Yeah, all year long. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Glenda A. Hatchett. Let's give it up for her. Thank you for the word this morning, my friend.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We
What
so
a
appreciate it.
privilege.
Oh my gosh, likewise. All right, well, coming up, we're sitting down with more change.